Her fingers brushed against his collar, and the world seemed to stop. "Stop staring at my lips like that," she whispered, her voice barely audible in the quiet office. "If you keep looking at me that way, I'll..." Have you ever wondered how a simple moment can change everything? If this story already has you hooked, hit that like button and subscribe to see more content that explores those life-changing encounters we never see coming. Mark Davidson never expected to find himself frozen in place as the CEO of his company adjusted his crooked tie. As a single father of two who barely remembered to comb his hair most mornings, he certainly hadn't planned on feeling that spark, the one he thought had died along with his wife 3 years ago. Emma Chen had built her tech empire from nothing, commanding respect in every boardroom she entered. But nothing in her Harvard MBA had prepared her for the flustered single dad who stumbled into her office that morning, tie askew and coffee stain on his shirt, clutching a presentation and an apology about his daughter's sudden fever keeping him up all night. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Chen. I know this meeting is important, and I promise I'm prepared despite." Mark gestured vaguely at his disheveled appearance, his portfolio tucked under one arm while he attempted to straighten his tie with his free hand. Emma had been ready to be annoyed. Her schedule was packed, and she had no time for unprofessionalism. But something in his earnest eyes stopped her. She recognized the exhaustion there, not the kind from a night of partying, but the bone-deep fatigue of someone carrying too much alone. "Here," she said, standing from behind her imposing desk. "Let me help you with that." Before Mark could protest, Emma stepped forward and reached for his tie. Her fingers worked deftly, straightening the Windsor knot with practiced ease. The scent of her perfume, something subtle and expensive, made his head swim slightly. "My father taught me how to tie these properly," she explained, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it in the quarterly meetings. "He said a person should always look their best, even when they feel their worst." Mark swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. Her dark eyes focused intently on her task, but then flicked up to meet his gaze. Something electric passed between them. "Thank you," he managed to say, his voice rougher than he intended. Emma's hand stilled on his tie, but she didn't step back. "You have good ideas, Davidson. Don't let a rough morning make you forget that." Mark couldn't help it, his eyes dropped to her lips as she spoke. They were painted a subtle rose color, and curved slightly at one corner in what might have been amusement. That's when she whispered those words that would change everything: "Stop staring at my lips like that. If you keep looking at me that way, I'll have to ask you to dinner, and I don't think either of us is ready for what might happen after that." The presentation went well, despite Mark's racing heart. Emma was professional, asking pointed questions and nodding approvingly at his answers. No one in the room would have guessed at the moment they'd shared, except for the slight flush that colored Emma's cheeks whenever their eyes met across the conference table. Mark returned to his desk afterward, trying to focus on his work but finding his mind wandering back to that moment again and again. He hadn't felt this kind of nervous energy since he was a teenager. It was ridiculous. He was a 38-year-old father of two with a mortgage and a minivan. She was Emma Chen, the 40-year-old CEO who graced the cover of Business Weekly last month. Worlds apart. His phone buzzed with a text from the babysitter: "Lily's fever is down. She's asking for mac and cheese." Reality crashed back. His daughter needed him. This schoolboy crush would have to wait, indefinitely. That evening, Mark stirred the pot of mac and cheese, his 7-year-old daughter Lily sitting at the kitchen counter coloring while his 10-year-old son Jason worked on math homework at the table. "Daddy, you're stirring too hard," Lily observed, looking up from her drawing. "The macaronis are getting smushed." Mark realized he'd been stirring the pasta with unnecessary vigor, his mind still replaying the morning's encounter. "Sorry, sweetheart. Just thinking about work." "Was your boss mean to you?" Lily asked, her small face scrunching with concern. Mark smiled. "No, actually. She was nice." "She?" Jason looked up from his homework, suddenly interested. "Is she pretty?" Mark felt his face warm. That's not, I mean, she's my boss, buddy. It doesn't matter if she's pretty. But is she? Lily pressed, grinning now. Mark sighed, serving the mac and cheese. Yes, she's very pretty. And very smart. And very much my boss, so that's the end of that conversation. But it wasn't the end. The next day, Emma called him into her office again. Your presentation yesterday was excellent, she said, not looking up from her computer as he entered. I'd like you to lead the Johnson account. Mark stood straighter. The Johnson account? But that's our biggest client. Emma finally looked at him, her expression unreadable. Yes, it is. Do you think you can handle it? Absolutely, he said without hesitation. Thank you for the opportunity. Emma nodded, then hesitated. How's your daughter? You mentioned she had a fever. The question caught him off guard. She's better, thank you. It was just a 24-hour thing. Good. Emma seemed to be debating something internally. I know it must be difficult, balancing everything on your own. Mark shrugged slightly. We manage. The kids are great, really. Makes it easier. How long have you been? She trailed off, seemingly unsure how to phrase the question. A widower? Mark supplied. 3 years next month. Car accident. Emma's expression softened. I'm sorry. Thank you. Mark had become accustomed to this conversation, the awkward sympathy, the quick change of subject that usually followed. But Emma surprised him. My mother died when I was 12. Cancer. My father raised me alone after that. Mark hadn't known this about her. Nothing in her polished, confident demeanor suggested childhood loss. It's why I noticed your tie yesterday, she continued. My father never quite mastered it. I learned to help him before business meetings. The personal revelation hung between them, creating a new kind of tension, one built on shared understanding rather than attraction, though that element certainly remained. Well, Mark said finally, if you ever need a poorly tied tie, I'm your guy. Emma laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her face. I'll keep that in mind. As weeks passed, Mark threw himself into the Johnson account, determined to prove Emma's faith in him was justified. They developed a new working relationship, professional but warmer than before. Sometimes he'd catch her watching him during meetings, her expression thoughtful. Sometimes she'd catch him doing the same. The children noticed the change in their father. One evening, as Mark hummed while cooking dinner, Jason said, "You seem happy, Dad." Mark paused, spatula in hand. I am happy. I've always been happy with you guys. Yeah, but this is different, Jason insisted. You're singing again. Mark hadn't realized. Before Rachel died, he used to sing constantly around the house, oldies, pop songs, made-up tunes about whatever he was doing. The music had died with her, or so he thought. I got a big project at work, he explained. It's going well. Is it because of the pretty boss lady? Lily asked innocently. Mark nearly dropped the spatula. What? No. Why would you say that? Lily shrugged. You smile when you talk about work now. You didn't used to. Kids missed nothing. Mark changed the subject, but their observation lingered. Was he developing feelings for Emma? The thought terrified him. Not just because she was his boss, but because opening his heart again meant risking the pain he'd barely survived the first time. The Johnson project required late nights. Often, Mark and Emma were the last two in the office, reviewing strategies and refining presentations. One such evening, after everyone else had gone home, Emma ordered takeout for them both. You remembered I like pad thai, Mark noted as she handed him the container. I pay attention, Emma said simply, settling into the chair across from his desk with her own food. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the office quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sounds of the city below. "Tell me about your kids," Emma said suddenly. Mark looked up, surprised. "Really? You want to hear about my chaotic home life?" "I do." Her expression was genuine. "What are they like?" Mark found himself talking more than he had in years, about Jason's obsession with astronomy and Lily's talent for art, about the challenges of helping with homework he barely understood himself, about the small triumphs and heartbreaks of raising children alone. "They sound wonderful," Emma said when he finally paused. "You're doing a good job, Mark." The simple validation nearly undid him. "Some days I'm not so sure." "No parent is," Emma replied. "My father used to say he was making it up as he went along. But he showed up every day, and that's what mattered." "Your father sounds like a wise man." "He was." Emma's expression grew distant. "He died last year. Heart attack." Mark's heart ached for her. "I'm sorry. That must have been incredibly difficult." "It was. Is." Emma set down her fork. "The hardest part is having no family left. No one who shares those memories." The vulnerability in her admission struck Mark deeply. Emma Chen, Powerhouse CEO, was lonely. "What about you?" she asked. "Do you have family nearby?" Mark shook his head. "My parents are in Arizona." Rachel's parents, well, they found it too painful to stay connected after she died. They send birthday cards to the kids, but that's about it. "So you're alone too," Emma observed quietly. Their eyes met across the desk, and Mark felt that now familiar electricity. But there was something else too, recognition, understanding. "Not completely," he said. "I have the kids." "Yes," Emma smiled slightly. "You're lucky that way." The moment stretched between them, full of unspoken possibilities. Then Emma's phone buzzed, breaking the spell. She checked it and sighed. "The Tokyo office," she explained, standing. "I should take this." Mark nodded, beginning to clean up their dinner. "Of course. I should get home to the kids anyway." Emma paused at the door. "Mark? Thank you for sharing your family with me tonight. Even if it was just stories." Before he could respond, she was gone, already speaking rapid-fire Japanese into her phone as she walked down the hallway. The Johnson presentation was scheduled for a Friday. The night before, Mark stayed late perfecting every detail. He was so absorbed in his work that he didn't notice Emma standing in his doorway until she cleared her throat. "It's nearly midnight," she said. "The presentation will still be there in the morning." Mark rubbed his eyes. "I just want to make sure everything's perfect." "It will be." Emma entered his office and perched on the edge of his desk, looking at his computer screen. "You've done excellent work, Mark. The client is going to love it." Her confidence in him was still surprising. "I hope so. I know so." She reached out and closed his laptop gently. "Go home. Get some sleep." Their hands brushed as Mark reached for his computer, and neither pulled away immediately. The office was silent, the late hour creating an intimacy that felt dangerous and exhilarating. "Emma," Mark began, not sure what he wanted to say but feeling he needed to say something. "This is complicated," she said quietly, reading his thoughts. "I'm your boss. I know. And you have your children to consider. I know that too." Emma's hand still rested lightly on his. "And we've both lost people. We know how much it hurts." Mark turned his hand over, their palms meeting. "That's exactly why I think we understand each other." Emma looked at their joined hands, then back to his face. For a moment, Mark thought she might lean forward, close the distance between them. Instead, she gently withdrew her hand. "Tomorrow is important," she said, her professional demeanor returning. Let's focus on that first. Mark nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. You're right. Tomorrow first. The presentation went flawlessly. The Johnson executives were impressed, asking insightful questions that Mark handled with confidence. Throughout it all, he was aware of Emma watching him, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. When the clients left, promising to sign the contract on Monday, the office erupted in celebration. Emma ordered champagne, and everyone gathered in the conference room to toast their success. To Mark, Emma said, raising her glass. Who proved that sometimes the best person for the job is the one who has the most to juggle. Everyone cheered, and Mark felt a flush of pride. As the celebration continued, Emma made her way to his side. Congratulations, she said quietly. You've earned this. Thank you for giving me the chance, he replied. It means more than you know. Their conversation was interrupted by Mark's phone ringing. It was Jason's school. Mr. Davidson? There's been an accident during gym class. Jason fell and may have broken his arm. We've called an ambulance. Mark's world narrowed to a pinpoint of fear. I'll be right there. Which hospital are they taking him to? As he hung up, he was already gathering his things, panic evident on his face. What's happened? Emma asked, concern in her voice. Jason fell at school. They think his arm is broken. I have to go, I need to call the babysitter to get Lily. I'll drive you, Emma said immediately. You're in no state to drive yourself. Before Mark could protest, Emma was already directing her assistant to reschedule her afternoon meetings and grabbing her car keys. The ride to the hospital was a blur. Emma drove with the same efficiency she brought to everything, navigating traffic while Mark made calls, to the babysitter, to his parents, leaving a message for his boss who didn't know he'd left with the CEO. At the hospital, Emma insisted on coming inside. I'll wait in the lobby, she said when Mark hesitated. But you shouldn't be alone right now. The emergency room was chaotic, but Emma's presence seemed to part the crowds. Within minutes, Mark was being led to a curtained area where Jason lay on a bed, his face tear-streaked but brave. Dad, he called when he saw Mark. Mark rushed to his side, careful not to jostle the arm that was already being splinted by a nurse. Hey, buddy. I'm here now. You're going to be okay. It really hurts, Jason admitted, his voice small. I know, but you're being so brave. Mark smoothed his son's hair back from his forehead. What happened? We were playing basketball. I went for a layup and Tyler accidentally knocked me off balance. I fell weird. Jason looked up at his father. Is my arm broken? The doctor arrived then, introducing herself and explaining that yes, Jason had a fracture, but it was clean and wouldn't require surgery. We'll put a cast on it, and he'll need to wear it for about 6 weeks. Mark nodded, relief washing over him. Thank you, doctor. As the medical team prepared to cast Jason's arm, Mark stepped out briefly to update the babysitter who was with Lily. In the hallway, he was surprised to see Emma still waiting, a cup of coffee in her hand. How is he? She asked, offering him the coffee. Mark accepted it gratefully. Broken arm, but a clean break. They're putting a cast on now. That's good news, Emma said, genuine relief in her voice. Children are resilient. They are, Mark agreed, taking a sip of the coffee. It was exactly how he liked it, strong with just a touch of cream. Another detail she'd noticed. Thank you for driving me. And for waiting. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, Emma said simply. Then, with a small smile, besides, I've never met your children. This wasn't exactly how I imagined it happening, but... The implication that she had imagined meeting his children hung between them. Would you like to meet Jason? Mark asked impulsively. He's a bit groggy from the pain medication, but I know he'd be excited to meet the pretty boss lady. Emma raised an eyebrow. Pretty boss lady? Mark winced. The kid's nickname for you, not mine. Though I don't disagree with the assessment. Emma laughed softly. I'd love to meet him, if you're sure it's okay. When they returned to Jason's room, the cast was nearly finished, bright blue, at Jason's request. His eyes widened when he saw Emma enter behind his father. Jason, this is Ms. Chen, my boss, Mark introduced. She drove me to the hospital.